Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today what we're going to be talking about is something that you'll see a lot of on YouTube. It's dividend investing. Now, I love dividends. I will take your dividend all day long, right? Please return cash to me directly, right? Um, I'm happy with the dividend. I'll take it. Um, The important thing here, though, is that there's a lot of debate about dividends. The big debate here is whether you should take a dividend or whether you should reinvest within the company, um, or the company should reinvest in itself rather than give you a dividend. Um, there are plenty of theories out there about what happens and what's going on, and are dividends value creating or value destroying, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Um, the thing that I want to point out is that I actually, when it comes to investing, do not care at all, one way or the other. It does not matter to me whether or not the investment actually pays a dividend. Now, that's kind of funny because I primarily am investing in dividends at the moment, and we can talk about that towards the end of the video. But the thing that I want to point out is that what you are doing when you buy a business is you are buying a stream of income. Now, that income comes from profits, right? And we're talking true owners' profits, the free cash flow of the business. Because, we're not outlaying money for depreciation and things like that. We want to add all that stuff back in. It's why measures like EBITDA are popular, right? So free cash flow, it's a great little measure of the operational cash that the business is generating for their owners. Now, I've said many, many, many times that I look at the capital allocation strategy of the business, right? The capital allocation is very, very important to me. And there are 5 things that you can do with cash. You can, once the business has gotten it, you can pay down debt, you can pay a dividend, you can reinvest in the business. Let's see, you can buy back your shares, or you can buy other businesses, right? And dividends are part of that strategy. And I want to know if the dividend makes sense in that strategy. And I love it when a business, when the managers of the business actually have a strategy here, right? Where they can point to it and say, this is what we are doing with your cash, right? We're going to return some of the cash to the shareholders with dividends. We're going to do these buybacks. We're going to pay down this debt, and we're going to do it in these ratios. We're going to do a little bit of all 5 of those things. We're going to do a little bit. We're going to be all in on dividends. We're going to be all in on share buybacks. We're just going to reinvest capital, whatever it is, right? I want to know what that is. And so there's this theory floating around that dividends are irrelevant, right? Because a dollar in the business is the same thing as a dollar in your pocket, right? It doesn't matter where that comes from. We can put the money wherever. Um, and it would, if I keep the money in the business, the share price is going to go up because there's more cash in the business. The cash in the business makes the business more valuable, and therefore it, it enriches the owner. And if you distribute the cash to the owner, it enriches the owner, right? They have cash. It doesn't matter what bucket you put that dollar in, it still belongs to the owner of the business, right? Whether the business gives it to the owner or not. And therefore, dividends should be irrelevant. And that's true for the most part. The thing that I look at when somebody talks to me about that, of whether the dividend is irrelevant or not, is what is the business's opportunity cost with that dollar, right? That's the real question. And so, can the business reinvest that dollar into itself and get a better return than I could with like a market index fund? If they can, right? If they can reinvest that money at, say, better than 7%, they should keep the money, right? And if they can, get a better than 7% return by buying back their shares, they should buy back their shares. And if they can get a better than, say, 7% return, again, I'm doing a very conservative, this is what the market returns. You could say 8, 9%, whatever, right? Just 7% as an example. But if they could get a 7% return by buying another business, great, do that. Just don't leave the cash sitting around earning 2%, right? That from, say, a treasury or whatever, right? Like a cash equivalent. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, right? Give it to me. Give that money to me, right? In that scenario, because I could probably do something better with it than just letting it sit around. And in those situations, yeah, a dividend makes sense. The other thing too is that you need to consider the taxes, right? That's the other big argument I hear from people who are against dividend investing. Well, you get double taxed on a dividend, right? You get taxed at the corporate level, and then when they distribute the money, you get taxed at an individual level, and that ain't right. I kind of personally agree with this. Going back to bad policy, they're going to be taxing share buybacks, which is because they're already taxing that money when it's earned. So why are you taxing it again? And then, you're also triple dipping on that one because somebody else is selling the shares and you're getting the capital gains tax on that too. It really feels like a triple dip when you tax share buybacks. I understand the argument that it's enriching the rich and blah, 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 the people that don't have to sell their shares, right? The people that choose not to sell their shares, it enriches them and they're never paying taxes, blah, blah, blah. I get that, but it still doesn't feel right to me. It feels like the government's giving itself the ability to tax more. And the thing is once you start taxing it, it's never going to go away. But you have the same problem with dividends, right? The problem with dividends is that you get taxed on the dividends when the company gives it to you, but that money has already been taxed at the corporate level. And so people are saying, well, I don't want dividends. I don't want them because I don't want to get taxed. And I can understand that, right? You do not want to get those taxes. That's not great. My argument here is that that really just translates into the return that the company needs to be able to get in order to say, yeah, let's just pass that out as a dividend, right? So what you do is you calculate 15% on the money that you're giving out, and you add that to your calculation, right? If it's, and that's going to imply some sort of return. So if you're saying, if we can't invest at least 7%, we're going to give the money back to the shareholder. And then you go, well, there's also this 15% tax. So 7% times 1.15, right? Whatever that ends up being. I can do the math. I have a calculator. It turns out to be 8.05%, right? 8%. So instead of 7%, we'll just say if we can't invest it at 8%, we're going to hand it out as a dividend, right? And if it's between 7 and 8%, then we'd be able to invest it. Maybe we just hang on to the cash, or we invest it, right? In such a way that we get, we don't cause undue burden. So it's not crazy, right? So if you can't invest it, then what's the point, right? And if you can invest it at 8%, then you do the 8%. If you can get then you do that, right? It just increases or decreases. Yeah, I did that wrong. It should be divided by 1.15, so probably around 6. It just decreases the rate that you have to be able to achieve. Yeah, that's what it is. For the company has to be able to achieve, right? So let's see, yeah, it's 6%. And so that's the thing, right? Like, if you can invest it between 6 and 7%, invest it at 6 or 7%, that's fine, right? That's why, incidentally, I used the 7% number instead of a more traditional like 8%, because taxes, right? So for me, it's more about like, can you invest the money at a high enough rate that it makes sense to not pay me the dividend? All right, so that's really it, right? If you can do that, then great, let's do that, right? I'll take your dividend. I'm happy to receive your dividend. But if you can reinvest it at a higher rate of return than what I would be able to get, invest the money, right? Like, I want the company to prosper. I own it. Invest the money. Do what you need to do. So that's sort of my thoughts on dividend investing. I know it's kind of a wonky idea here, what you're going to do with the dividend, right? Now, I did go and say that I am personally buying dividend stocks at the moment. That's really important because I think that you need to balance the future with today, right? I'm a very big proponent of that balance. My future is invested in non-taxable or tax-deferred accounts like a Roth, right? Roth IRA, Roth 401k. That's the future. That's me taking care of future Ryan, right? I also invest in a fully taxable account. Why would I do that? I'm basically throwing money away to the government. And the reason why I do that is because every time that you see an economic downturn, not that I'm expecting to get laid off or whatever, you end up hearing stories of people dipping into their 401k. They dip into their 401k. People are, they're raiding their retirement accounts. I think that's just poor planning, right? You didn't do enough in the taxable realm. Because if you were doing things in the taxable realm, you wouldn't need to raid your retirement savings if you have other savings as well. And I think that in a worst case scenario, you probably would rather have income than a giant pile of money. That's just me, right? I would much rather have income coming in every single month, even if it was less than what I was getting paid at my job, right? Because income is better than savings, right? I feel like that's a fairly controversial statement for an investing group of people, but I'll say it. Income is probably better than savings, and so I want to have current income, right? I want to have taxable current income coming in a worst case scenario, right? And so what I'm doing at the moment is I am actually building out a dividend portfolio, an income portfolio, which I am calling my inflation mitigation income portfolio. And what that is it's basically me taking my expenses and buying stocks that match those expenses and paying off those expenses. So things like my utility bills, right? I'll go out and I'll buy electric utility companies. I'll buy the gas utility companies. I'll buy the water utility companies in the stock market. And I will start gathering up money, right? Income from these companies. And I do it until I have enough money invested in these companies that they are paying me what my outlay is. Now, it might be that they pay quarterly, so I need to buy 3 months worth of dividends to offset my monthly expense, right? So that's fine, whatever. But that's the basic idea. And what if I have a relationship with my power company? Like, my power company is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and Warren Buffett famously does not pay dividends on Berkshire stocks because he thinks that he can reinvest that money at a higher rate than the shareholders, and I don't blame him, right? At all. I think that's smart. But my power company, my electricity bill, goes to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. Do I buy Berkshire or do I buy something else? And I buy something else, and that's because I'm looking for the income on my portfolio to offset those expenses. And so what do I do there? I buy a couple of electricity companies, right? I buy 3 or 4 or 5 of them to diversify. To diversify that, I try to pay a good price for them based off of free cash flows and things like that, and blah blah blah, right? And I do good valuation work on them before I buy them. If I can't find one that's paying a dividend, I go and look at my other bills, right? That's paying a dividend at a good valuation. I go look at other stocks, right? There's no need to sit here and be like, oh, I have an electricity bill that I need to pay off. I'm going to go and buy just the electricity stocks, and regardless of valuation. No. What you do is you wait for the electricity stocks to have a good valuation, and then you buy those, and then you do it with like your internet bill or whatever, right? And you do that until you have all of your bills paid off by the company or an equivalent company, to pay off those regular reoccurring monthly expenses. That's what I'm doing personally, and it's great, and then that if something were to happen, those bills would be taken care of, right? You know that there's income to offset those bills. Which is what I'm trying to do. Now, I mentioned that it's an inflation hedging thing, right? It's my inflation protected income portfolio. It's probably the right way to say that. The idea with it being inflation protected is that as my bills rise, the profits of these companies should be rising too, I would hope, right? And with rising profits, the dividends should be increasing, and so my dividends should be increasing with my bills, roughly, right? And so I don't have to worry about it. I own the infrastructure needed to pay, to buy the things that I use, which is great, right? That is the goal of that portfolio, really, is just, hey, and the thing is that, yeah, I could end up with less money, right? I might not match the market. I think that I'll beat the market. I think that I will, because I'm doing really good valuation work here when I'm buying these companies. I think that I'll at least match the market, but I think I might beat the market on some of these on these plays. And the thing is that once I own the company, like my internet service provider is Comcast. I'm buying crap tons of Comcast right now because the valuation looks really good to me. And, like, I'm not ever going to give those shares up. Like, they paid my internet bill. And the thing is, if I buy more and more and more and more of the Comcast stock, for example, and it's paying way, 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 way more than what my internet bill is, I can upgrade my service, right? I can get better internet, and so I'm not terribly worried, right? So that's really the thing, right? Or I keep the internet, my internet the same, and I keep the same service as I currently have, and then if there's ever a dividend cut, they cut the dividend in half or something, and I might still have enough to pay my bill off of the dividend, right? And otherwise, who cares, right? So yeah, I might not match the market. I think that I'll match the market. I'm pretty sure that I will, and I'm fairly confident that I'll actually beat it. But even if I don't, right, I'm just buying capital. I'm just owning the businesses that I use. I own the infrastructure for my internet service. Literally, I do, right? Because I own the company that provides my internet service, right? And I own enough of that company that they're paying me more than what I'm paying them, right? So I therefore must own enough of the infrastructure to supply the needs that I have. I own electricity utilities, right? And I own enough of them I own enough of the grid that my bills are being paid, right? And I didn't even have to put a solar panel on my roof, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like I probably laid out about as much money as I would have for solar panels, right? Uh, and I have no personal maintenance costs for maintaining the grid. Now, the companies that I own do, but whatever, right? Yeah. So I own enough of the grid that I supply my own electricity. Ta-da! Right? I own Verizon, right? And I pay that my cell phone bill paid for, right? By Verizon. Ta-da! Right? Um, and I expect that, I'm going to be owning these things roughly in proportion to the bills that I have. And as inflation happens on those bills, um, I'm going to my income in those categories are also going to increase. There may be a little bit of lag, but I don't think that I'm going to be punished too heavily by inflation in the future if I own the companies that produce the things that I buy. Um, and then I'm probably going to do the same thing with the groceries, right? I'm going to start buying food companies and grocery stores and things like that, and logistics companies, everybody in that supply chain, so that I can buy groceries and I'll get dividends from all of those companies. And then we're basically good. I might buy some insurance companies along the way too, come to think of it. But, like once I've got the basic needs down, we're going to stop doing dividend investing, specifically for the income. We're just going to slowly build it up over time. And the fun thing is that you get this nice little snowball effect with it too, right? Like once you've paid off your electricity bill, you can keep paying your electricity bill and roll the extra income that's throwing off into other stock purchases, and you start getting the snowball growing bigger and bigger and bigger. It's sort of the opposite of a debt snowball, right? It's an asset snowball, which is way better than a debt snowball. But anyway, I digress. Wow, this video has already gone way too long. Dividend investing. Powerful technique, but you have to be careful, and it's more important about how the business is allocating the capital than the dividend that you get. That's the takeaway. All right, that's all that I'm going to say for now. Until next time, stay rational.